Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to Insights with Ben Chodor, where I have the privilege of interviewing people that I think are amazing. And this episode, I get to interview the author of this incredible book, Grit and Grind. Two of my favorite words to begin with, 10 Principles for Living an Extraordinary Life. Rhonda, thank you so much for being on. This is incredible. But I got to tell you something, Rhonda. This is how you had me. You had me at hello in the book, because right in the introduction, I'm going to read this verbatim.
Okay.
You can't tell me that it's not worth it. If you go all in, you experience tremendous growth and change in your leadership style. Even if the only person you're leading is yourself, welcome to being truly alive. How incredible. I mean, so you had me at that moment. So my first question for you is, why did you write the book? And more importantly, do you feel alive? All your, your travels and adventures, did you always know you were going to be a leader?
Oh, great question. First off, Ben, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here with you. You're a wonderful leader yourself. What made me write the book? A bunch of my peers and CEO friends kept saying you need to write a book about everything you've learned. And this is my second book. The other one was a technical dummies book. So I really wanted to take a moment, and I didn't tell anyone, Ben, I was writing it.
Right.
At all. So I wrote it because everyone kept saying you should put these adventures down, and I do feel alive.
Right.
I did not know that in my, I would say, 20s and 30s working as much. So that's why I'm all about into cultural immersion. I was just working on the hamster wheel, and now we're on Zoom wheel as we feel it today in the pandemic. But I think when I found that moment and I knew it, that's why I wrote it down, because it's pivotal that if you lead like that, your team feels your energy, positive or negative. And I do feel alive, and I'm proud of it, Ben, and it helps me lead every day.
Rhonda, I love that. So here's a question. If you were, has your thought on leadership changed at all over the last 14 months of COVID? Like, if you were going to write the book now, would there be anything different? Or in some ways, I think it's even more important today to be an incredible leader. But what have you learned from COVID?
Well, to answer your other question, I always knew I wanted to be a leader. Through sports. I knew that early on. I didn't know what it would look like as I grew up through the career. How would I change the book? I would even talk about in the book, being present in the moment, enjoying the time. That's why the cultural immersions are so important, to learn diversity of thought, each culture, because you get on these Zoom calls now, Ben, in this pandemic, and you have to be present. You have to power through things, no matter the screen time. The risk, the resiliency of leading is so important through the pandemic, because everything is two-dimensional and you want it to be three-dimensional. And I would write more about how you lead, not with human contact.
Right. Which in some ways is much harder. It's easy for me to lead in person, and you could follow me, and you could see my vibe and feel the energy, and you can't feel it as much on one of these. And you're right, being present is really, really important. So first, again, I said at the very beginning, I love the word grit and grind, but what is the grit and grind philosophy?
Oh, doing what it takes, getting your hands dirty, diving down into the details, just knowing every detail. You're going to have those moments like, what am I doing? I'm persevering. I feel I'm hitting the iceberg. Push through the iceberg, grind it out, don't stop. And you just feel the hard work. And it's so important to have that philosophy as a leader, and whatever your purpose and vision and mission is, it's important to have that mentality.
It is. It's interesting. So for my 1,400 people around the world, I always sit there. So I do a really crazy thing. I'm the final interview for anyone in our organization that is client facing. So last year alone, we hired close to 200 people, and I'm the final interview. And they ask about your leadership style, and I go, our executive leadership team is very blue collar, and I mean, we roll up our sleeves, we get dirty, and we're in the business and we don't lead from on top of the business. And when I'm reading your book, all that keeps on popping out of me is like, you're not just leading from on top, you're in it. And you're also really big on empowering, members of your organization, which I think is one of the keys. So before we even get into chapter 1, you advise that you need discipline to start seeing results from the 10 grit and grind principles. How can discipline be your key to freedom or the key to that locks you in? So
Discipline is everything. I think we found it even more during this pandemic. What are your daily rituals, your habits? What do you do at 5 a.m? Swimming is my go-to during the pandemic. That discipline on knowing the goal, what you're going for, is so important. And having those, the average human takes 7 or 8 times to hear something to get it. And with repetition and discipline, you just find your normal cadence, and it's very important to have in your life and leading.
So does being a triathlete, all right, so I'm training for my first triathlon. I was supposed to do it a year ago now in May in Connecticut, and obviously it was canceled. And then I was supposed to do it in Montauk because I'm staying in East Hampton, and then that was canceled. And now I'm going to do it in September in Montauk. And all the training, I think it's made me better at everything I do, because I have to start every morning at 4:30, 5 a.m. to get in the full workout. It makes me more disciplined. And I find that I take that and I bring it into my work environment. So as being, like you mentioned, being an athlete and training for a tribe, does that force you to be more disciplined?
Yeah. So first off, congratulations on
Thank you.
signing up. Number one, that's a big deal because you commit when you hit that
Yes.
return enter button. So Ben, I can't wait to hear how you do. And training does help because you show up, you have a schedule, and think of your calendar every 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And I talk about it in the book, schedule 22 minutes and 42, because you can't do back to back and you need transition time. Transition time is a triathlete term. And so I do pivot, transition, and I bring my athletic abilities, being an Ironman 70.3, into the workplace.
Right.
And I think it's very, very parallel, Ben, very parallel.
It's interesting because you also, on principle 3, you talk a lot about, not a lot, but you talk a whole chapter basically on 1,440 minutes we have in each day. And they're like silver tokens, and how you spend them is like a key. So what were you trying to tell in that story?
I was trying to tell 1,440, think of currency. It's currency. Yep. And you have time as a currency. How are you best going to utilize your time? How are you going to calendar it? The rigorness, just like a race, you have that. It's free every day. God willing, we all wake up and we have that. And you get to choose. Time is currency, and who you spend your time with. What's important during the day? Do you want wellness breaks? And I really wanted to hit home with that, Ben, because time is currency. So many people waste time. And that's one of my pet peeves. I don't like to waste time. Even meetings need to have a purpose.
Right. All right. I love that about time. And I feel the same way. Someone asked me recently if I could have one thing, I'd want more time, right? There's not enough time in a day. COVID's actually made every day feel like 12 noon on a Wednesday, right? There's no beginning, a middle, or end. Your next principle 4, listening. This is one that I'm trying to become a better listener. And I think it's one of the keys to success. Sometimes the smartest people in the room are the ones who aren't always trying to give their opinion. They listen. But you say listening is the most important first step in a conversation. What's your 3 steps to a process of listening?
Listening is pivotal because you have to understand someone's point of view and where they're coming from and not cut them off. Everyone has the right to their own feelings. Try to understand what they're going through. What's the purpose? What are they trying to tell? And I pause. And Ben, I'm often sometimes the quiet one in the room a lot because I process before I speak to make sure I have all the facts before I make a decision. Sometimes you can't always if you're in a crisis mode. But there's always another part of the story that I try to understand if I have the time. But listening and etiquette are so important these days because everyone wants this new generation instant gratification, and you need to listen to understand to make a decision.
I love that. All right. So jumping, because there's so much I want to cover in this very short time. Principle 7, communicate openly. You talk about nonverbal cues being just as important as verbal cues. What are the verbal and nonverbal cues people should replicate?
Well, I think when you're processing and listening on Zoom, eye contact is key, not multitasking. Looking at folks and having your emotion come out. And, I understand everyone has screen time, but really nodding is a good way to, is a great nonverbal. Eye contact, I look for that all the time. Shoulders, who's really into the moment. You could tell, Ben, and you can see when you're listening, who's in the moment, who's not, even on Zoom and without in life. And I really look at nonverbal cues on the phone, video. I'm the first one to be flipping through the screens, Ben.
I always do. I always do.
And your leadership's like this because you do all this. You're a great leader. And I admire you for your leadership, because when we chatted, you listened to the story, you processed, we were both calm in the heat of the moment, and we both, came together, and we're now a team. So I think it's great. I think that's a great live example, Ben.
We fixed it.
Yes.
That's the point. And I think any relationship, it's about listening and putting the best foot forward. And a lot of people don't do it. But it's interesting when you say that about, like, on a Zoom call or WebEx call. I always look around and I try not to look at my phone. I try to give eye contact. And I notice when people are not paying attention. And it irks me a little bit. But I understand there's so much going on. But it's really interesting. When people are paying attention. Where, before, when it was just a conference call, you had no idea. And right. I don't think I ever paid attention when it was just a conference call. But when it's video, you look and you know people are looking at you. And I also don't like when people are on Zoom calls and WebExes and they don't share their video. I think it's a cheat, right? And engage. If I'm going to give you all of me, you should give all of you, which then leads to this. Your principle 8 is recognize your team. I mean, you mentioned treat them like family. My whole goal is I want to build a team around me that are all smarter than me, all better than me. I want to and empower them, and they do become my family. So for you, what does recognizing your team mean?
I give them all the credit, singly as a team unit, when they make a major milestone. It's all about the team. It's not about one person. It takes teamwork makes the dream work. It's true. No, everyone in life has a team. Look at your support system in your family life. It's a team. It's not one person, even in the workplace. It's grander. And the team, it's all about teamwork. If you have an ego, forget it. If you're in the glorification, forget it. And that won't fly in these cultures at all. And it's all about recognizing people in the moment, Ben. Here's another nugget. It needs to be real-time recognition and feedback. Don't give someone recognition 2 months later, 3 months, 6 months. It loses the validity of it and the moment.
It's also not only just good feedback, it's radical candor, right? So, like a pet peeve is when someone says, what you did 3 months ago, you should have done it differently. My first comment would be like, why didn't you tell me right after it happened? So I don't do it again for the next 3 months, which I've done. And I find that, I work really well when people give me radical candor. I try to give it to them, and it's good. It could be good information. It could be corrective information, but don't sit on it. And I think a lot of people, nature is, I'm not non-confrontational, and giving people feedback isn't confrontational. It's makes you a better person, I think.
Yeah, it makes you grow. If you're a leader, you don't wait for your mid-year review or end of the year review to give feedback, right? That's a no-no. But as a human, Ben, I would challenge you to think, and who did you give feedback to in your personal life lately? Not work, but your friends. I find my friends during COVID need to get feedback even more because we don't see them. We see everyone at work, family on Zoom. So friends, it's like, what's going on? Are you really okay? You're silent. What's the problem? I mean, I'm giving them feedback that way.
Right. I agree. It works in personal and in professional. And then eventually a lot of your personal becomes what you met in professional. I mean, if I look at my closest friends, a lot of them I've had engagements with, whether they were
Mm.
client, competitor, coworker, just working with them. When you're in the war with them, it speeds up your relationship exponentially, which is to me one of the best parts of growing a career is building that family. So team building, do you have any, when you take over a new team, like when you join Herbalife and you as the CIO and you had a new team, is there certain things you do to sort of test out the team or engage with the team that have worked for you?
Well, it happened before the pandemic, so I got to a couple of the regions, but I meet with them, have all hands. During the pandemic, we do team exercises on Zoom, which is not just talking about work, Ben. It could be anywhere from teams doing fun family feud to mental wellness to exercising together, because I'm a big
Right.
health and wellness person. So I always want to work in exercising, not for folks to get hurt or be competitive, but just get them to move. It could be active meditation on Zoom. We do meditation together because, and that's a team bonding, right? Think about getting on
Yes.
Zoom
No.
and being meditating for 3 minutes and 4 seconds. That helps so much. And then we also do this getting to know you series that everyone does a one pager about getting to know yourself, and we nominate people throughout, and it just keeps on going through the
Wow.
organization. And I find that has really helped because it's not talking about technology. It's talking about the human aspect for folks to get to know each other.
I love that. I
Thank
want
you.
to try that. I do. So I took over, well, our organization started April 13th, 2018. And so we are now 170 weeks into our company. And I've done a video every Friday for 170 weeks. And this week
Wow.
will be 170. And I get 7 or 8 or 9 members of the organization to tell their story and share it and spread it, because having, close to 1,500 people in 17 countries around the world, you don't get to see each other. And I find during COVID, you need it even more. But I find for me, it's now my therapy. Every week I get to just open up, look in a camera and tell everyone what I'm going through. And it makes them feel like they can open up and tell us what they're going through. And again, again, building a culture, how do we all work together? And so what you're saying just so resonates with me. All right, next part of your book that I love is you talk about managerial courage.
Hmm.
All right, so for the audience, what is managerial courage?
Managerial courage is so important. When you really are sitting on something that's a problem, you need to bring it forward as soon as possible. And first off, you need to create a safe environment as a leader so that folks feel like they can express themselves. And having the courage to speak up when there's an issue, whether it's an overspend in a budget line item or someone not getting along in a teamwork, whatever's on your mind, having the courage to step forward and speaking your mind. And I love that, Ben, no matter what it is, love bad news story. I just love when people speak up and reach out and having that courage. I think more people in the world need to have that courage in life too.
Well, why do you think in an organization, people, are they scared of authority, or they're scared of how it's going to come, the repercussions of it? Like, why don't people share? I mean, I try to tell everyone, like, we're no silos organization. Share your ideas. What's the worst we're ever going to do is say, hey, Rhonda, it's a good idea, but we're not going to do it for this reason. But you're not a name on a spreadsheet. You do that. You're now somewhere in my mind, whether it's promotion down the road or where you're going. Why are people so scared of having the courage?
Well, I think it depends on the company. Number one, the culture of the company. So I've seen very safe cultures, and to that promote that. Some just say that and they don't act upon it, Ben. So the organization says, oh, you say that, but the leadership doesn't follow through. So I think some folks get that. But when you're leading from the top, and I call it, you need to lead from every chair. If no matter, who cares what title it is, everyone is equal, and everyone can speak up. And I think we as leaders need to promote that even more. And when someone does in a meeting, Ben, and I just had a town hall this morning, I said, great managerial courage in front of everyone. Love it. Please keep speaking up. So the more you recognize in the moment, going back to real-time feedback, and calling out that managerial courage, everyone's like, oh, this is what we mean.
Exactly. No, I love that. One of the other things I love in the book, besides, I love the stories because it's not just principles and information. You tell stories. I also love how you thank people in the book. Like I recently wrote a book, and on the first page you'd say, "Couple people will change your life," and then just names of people. You wrote a few sentences about everyone in your life, and one of the things that resonated with me was not the friends that you put in and the family members. Is like I worked with this person here and they did this and it followed through. It means that they've all kind of imprinted something on your life, and hopefully it's made you a better leader, right? Because they all add to it. Like, what made you decide to really pay tribute to all those people?
Thank you for picking that up, Ben. The publisher thought I was crazy, number
Yeah.
one, at first. But it really resonated because that's from my heart, what makes me tick. Every one of those folks that I mentioned had an impact on my life. And I've told them, but when you see it in print, it was pretty substantial. And I wanted folks to know that they're a part of the nucleus, and how they've impacted my life personally and professionally. And a lot of folks don't understand how one moment can change someone's life.
Yep.
And I wanted folks to reflect on that because, and I invited them all to the book party. And I was so blessed that they showed up, Ben, because they didn't know. I mean, that wasn't just a party. That was like I was giving back to them to thank them for everything that they've done. And they often didn't know what I wrote in the book to them. And thank you for picking up on that.
I mean, listen, I like to say that I love the book, but it's not my favorite part. It's the part that you sit there and go, I mean, I read every single one of them because they were short, sweet, and they told a story, and it allowed me to get to know really who the author is, right? When you read a book, you go, all right, I believe in your principles. I love what you're saying about courage and grit and grind and how I got there. But it really, you opened your heart. You were very vulnerable in what you said, and that shows that's courage, right? That's, and I just thought that was amazing. All right, if we were going to wrap this up and you had to give advice to, anyone in my organization or anyone out there in their career journey, what would you want them to know? Besides, everyone should read this book because it's incredible.
Thank you, Ben. I would want them to know that I want them to have people that they write down, like in the book, Ben. Right. And if you can't write down a core group of nucleus folks that have impacted you, something's wrong. And I would also want them to thank them. I'm big on mentorship. So I always say, have you solidified your mentorship? Because often folks don't know that they're looked up to, but to solidify a mentor is, I can't stress this enough. You have to say that to someone. And I would also want the audience to know in these times, being mobile and being where you are in life is just learn from it. Learn, and it's okay. It's okay to be challenged. I would want them to know that pit in your stomach is a good feeling too, Ben.
I actually think it's the best feeling because life isn't supposed to be like this. It's supposed to be a roller coaster ride, and you need challenges. You need to fail forward. It just makes you better at everything you do. I think after reading this book, I am a better leader, and I feel honored that you're on the show. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I will let you know how I do in my triathlon, and stay safe, and thank you for being here.
I can't wait. I look up to you, Ben. You're a great leader. Thank you for all you do.
All right. Have a great day.
Thanks.